My guest today is Kai Huang. Kai says that he started out as an overweight, as he describes it, a chunky designer. And he went on to become a brand builder and was pretty unhappy with how he was feeling. And so he decided to cut 70 pounds off of his frame. And he now is a fit and a brand builder for the fitness industry, inspired by his own journey. So he says he's much happier now. And he spends a lot of his time biohacking, trying to execute an optimal health routine without becoming, as he puts it, my entire personality. So today we're going to go all into why he's gone all into branding for the fitness industry as director, the studio director at FitKit Studio. We're going to talk about the one thing that fitness businesses like gyms could do to stand out in their market and what makes his company different than other marketing agencies that help gyms. Let's dive right in. All right, Kai, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to me. It's going to be a great conversation.
Thank you for having me, Linda.
Yeah, so I am really curious about your background. Now, I said in your bio, and you had said that you describe yourself as a chunky designer. And so you were, and you lost 70 pounds. So it was. So before we get into the gist of the conversation, can you talk a little bit about your journey? Like 70 pounds is a lot to lose. What was there some like one situation or one point where you just said, this is it, I'm going to lose it? And then how did you approach it?
There was actually multiple situations where I said, you know what, I'm going to lose it. And never did for a long time. And I think it was, a lot happened in my life during that point. I was this chunky designer. I was working as a freelancer, mostly in design, still doing branding work for hospitality groups, restaurants, not gyms yet, software as a service, few other industries. And I was doing okay, enough to get by, live comfortably. And I just got fat. I got complacent. I felt like this was it. I was like, oh, I'm doing fine. Like there's no reason for me to put in extra work. So it wasn't until I got my first gym client while also losing my girlfriend at the time, which for young men, it always throws them in a loop. And then also just realizing like, this is not the potential that I have for myself. I knew that for a long time. It was just this thing that was always there. It felt like it was looming over me. Mm-hmm. I think most people would relate to that as depression or anxiety. And to me, it was kind of the way that I got out of that, which was through fitness and starting that journey during that really dark period of my life. Mm-hmm. I think, that's pretty much what got me to finally say, okay, I really need to like do this. And at the same time, it was the removal of all of those other distractions. A lot of people who are around me in my life at that point, which it's not their fault by any means for the way that I was, but it was really easy for me to like give into, oh, okay, we're going to go eat out with people and I can eat whatever I want. And they don't really exercise. So I didn't really exercise. And, it's kind of like that whole, the 5 people you're around.
Right.
So once that happened and I was like really looking at myself, okay, who do I really want to be moving forward with my life? I was just looking at myself in the mirror. I was like, this is not it. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't always fat. Like in college, there was at some point I was skinny. I was a decently fit guy. I still went to the gym. I played football in high school and I just let it all go, partially because of laziness mostly. And then also excuses that I was telling myself like, oh, I have an injury here. My hip hurts here. And then instead of doing something to address the pain, I was like, I just can't work out. So giving a lot of excuses for myself. But recognizing ultimately that no one's coming to save me. This is the only way I can get through it is by actually addressing all of my issues. And that was it.
So did you I'm asking this because, as a personal trainer or former personal trainer, I'd have so many people tell me that they want to lose weight and that's what they hire me. But then when I would be working with them, I'm working with them an hour a week for the most part. And then they have the whole rest of the week to undo that hour, which can be undone pretty much in 5 minutes if you're really working at it. Yeah. And people would blame me, and I would say it has to come from within you to make that change. And so I'm always interested in what is that tipping point, that makes people say this is it. And so it sounds like, you found yours, but how did you approach it? Did you have a strategy, or were you just kind of cutting back on everything and just?
There's a lot of little things that I tried throughout I would say this initial journey lasted maybe, I have a calendar, a year and a half of really going through and losing all that 70 pounds. A lot of Goggins in the motivational playlists. It was a lot of having people around me who, a few of my friends who did go to the gym, hanging around them more. And then honestly, the biggest shift is just being nicer and kinder to myself. Because there's this spiral that you can get into when you are trying to do something to better your life and it's not really working. If you're not kind to yourself at that point, it really doesn't help. It's just going to drive you back to all the things to make you comfortable, right, and make you complacent. And being kind to myself allowed me to mess up, and then instead of spiraling back into bad habits, to say, okay, look, I messed up this one time. I'm gonna just recollect myself, and then let's move forward again.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, and that's such a good point to make, because a lot of times I've worked with people. I remember one guy I worked with, he had lost 100 pounds, and he was still not happy, but he was in therapy because he said, I knew, and my whole thing was if you're 10, 20 pounds overweight, that could just be overeating. When you get to 100 pounds overweight, usually there's something going on. So yeah. And then the fitness industry, so you started working out. And so how did you start getting into that? Just, you had friends that were at the gym? Did you hire a trainer? How did you start getting in shape?
No, I didn't hire anyone. I did have friends that I kind of relied on just to go with them and have someone to lift with. But I had previous experience from being in football in high school, at least for strength training. Mm-hmm. And then, I was always this like very volatile person when it came to my health. I would have months of doing really good and then months of doing really bad. So I had the previous experience of like, hey, losing 20 pounds or losing 15 pounds here and there. But it was never to this extent, because I really let myself go at that point. So it was like, okay, I got to lose 70 pounds. This is crazy. And the only thing I really did was, in the initial harder times, was having a friend to go to the gym with. So to keep me accountable for at least showing up. Yeah. And then when I showed up, it's a lot easier, because then he's there and he's like, yo, you got to lift this. And it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does help to have somebody go with you. I mean, a lot of times I go by myself, but I see a lot of people working out with, their partners or the friends of theirs. And I always used to tell my clients to do that, but you have to find someone who's not going to let you off the hook, who's going to say, you both don't want to do it. Somebody's got to be, saying, okay, we are going no matter what. So did this bring you around to actually working with the fitness industry, just having this interest in fitness?
Yeah, it's interesting, because I never thought that I would niche down in business, and especially niche down into the fitness industry for sure. When I first started this journey, it came a little bit before I got my first gym client. And it was a kind of, to me, it felt like, I'm a big believer that like the path you're supposed to be on in life reveals itself. And for me, there's just kind of a whole bunch of variables that just came together really naturally. Mm-hmm. Seeing the work that I was doing with my gym client and seeing how it was impacting other people at that gym and the people that was coming in to change their lives, while also going through my own experience, it made it really relatable for me. And then at the same time, just recognizing like, oh, hey, my work can actually have meaning. And it can actually help people. And it's not just a method of helping a business grow and helping someone make more money. It's like, we're actually doing something that could impact a lot of people's lives. Yeah. So that's what really gave me the go ahead. And also, I was on the fence for a while. Like, I did my research. I saw the opportunity in the space, especially in branding, especially for gyms. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of gyms, but like not many understand branding, and not many use it in a way that could radically transform their business. And I was really scared to hop into this niche, because I was like, oh, what about all my other clients? I'm letting all of these people go. And it really took my business coach at the time, Chris Do, to say, hey, look, it's obvious that you're passionate about this. It looks like you've had really big impact in fitness on your own life. Your story is really relatable and you can help a lot of people. So you should go down this route. And he really just gave me permission for something that was already in the back of my mind that I was thinking about doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's funny because I had a couple of copywriting coaches tell me that, because I had, we had talked previously and I told you I was in the fitness business for like 20 years as a trainer and as a writer. And I just had burned out from, writing articles and I didn't know what to do with it. And so I let it all drop when I became a copywriter. But then my background is what differentiates me. I'm certified in 4 different national certifications. I had the experience. So it's like with you, having lost weight, when you talk to people, and if there's, a fitness brand that kind of specializes in that, you can relate on a different level than someone who doesn't have that experience. And people can sense that. They can sense it in copywriting, they can sense it in branding. And yeah, I think that makes so much sense. You said there's one thing that fitness businesses like gyms could do to stand out in the market. There's really just one thing? It seems like there'd be a lot of things.
There's a lot of things you could do for sure. But I think that if you were looking at this from a root cause, like what is the one thing that if you were to figure out as a business and then use it as kind of the guiding principles to build everything else around, that would be the thing that I would focus on, right? And if there is that one thing, then for me, it's to be clear about who you want to serve, get to know them really well so you can communicate to them with clarity, and then build that ecosystem of experiences that will appeal to this customer. I think the issue now is many gyms are trying to target everybody. They're trying to make it as appealing as possible to a bunch of different demographics, but that doesn't work because like a 40-year-old who has pain and is trying to lose weight, not for aesthetic purposes, but for health reasons, is going to have a completely different persona, demographic, psychographic than like a 20-year-old who's trying to look good for, the summer, whatever they call the summer nowadays. I'm not really into it. Yeah. But they're completely different. Yeah, exactly. They're completely different personas. And if you're trying to target everyone, then you're really targeting no one. Right. So I think the most important thing is to understand who you want and get to know them well enough so you can build an ecosystem of experiences that will stand out to them.
Yeah. There's, I think I mentioned this to you. I don't know. Do you know Mike Hansen? He's a big guy in the fitness marketing space. He posted today on LinkedIn exactly what you were talking about. He broke down the different age groups according to, boomers and Gen X, and his name is Mike G. Hansen. And he talked about exactly this, how gyms try to be everything to everyone. And they end up not targeting the right group. But the thing, and I didn't respond, I didn't comment, but I was thinking about leaving this comment on his post, is that the thing is too, people move through these phases. Like I've told you, I'm a boomer, and it's like, I used to work out. I used to do 2 classes a day. I'd, go on a 25-mile bike ride like it was nothing. I'm not doing that now. I have no desire to do it. But it's interesting because the transitions between these age groups is kind of subtle, and you just find like these changes. And so it's almost like I think it's kind of hard to just focus on one demographic or one psychographic. Do you feel like that's like gyms should focus on a certain age group?
It's not always age group. There are many ways that you can focus, but I'm saying this from experience because I've been working with Fit Results, my first gym client, for 4 years now. And we started from a point where we were working and we were trying to get everybody. Like we were marketing in all different ways, trying all different types of different ways to market, trying to get everyone in group classes, as well as semi-private, as well as personal one-on-one training, and then having open gym, like doing everything for everyone. And it was a series of tests and experiments that got us down to this conclusion that we really need to be a solid option for a select few. And the easiest way I can explain this is like, there are a ton of waves and trends when it comes to marketing tactics in the gym industry. There's like the 6-week free challenges, right? They're great for upfront cash, but they're terrible to fulfill because you're always playing catch up. And then the people who show up and actually do the thing, you have to basically close them again in order to get them on a long-term contract. But the ones that go, they basically paid $500-$600. They didn't get anything, so they leave with a terrible taste in their mouth.
Right.
And then you have free trials with contracts. Those are great for experiences. You can keep them on board for a while, but then they're terrible if everything in your offer, if they take everything in your offer stack and then just leave. Not to mention like contracts nowadays are iffy with gyms. People can cancel their contract from the credit card. So it's not really like they mean anything, and gym owners are not going to, at least I hope, are not going to go chasing down individual contracts.
Yeah.
And then trial periods are really good to give potential customers an experience, an intro experience, but they have usually terrible margins. And if you don't convert the right percentage of customers, then it can be pretty detrimental. And so when we look at these marketing trends, we can see them as, okay, these are just tactics because these don't work long-term for everybody all the time. Mm-hmm. You have to really know the right one to use. And I think that's the key is if you know your brand, you know your customer, and you know the experience you're trying to build, then you can provide the right offer with the right experience that's better than anyone else in your market can offer to this particular type of person. And that will give you a much higher chance of capturing that market.
Yeah. It's like you and I talked about, Planet Fitness does a good job of that. And there's not many gyms that do that. And for a while, there was that one, what was the one that was a circuit training? It was for women. This was years ago. And there was I can't even think of the name of it now. There were no mirrors in it because, they wanted it to be.
Curves, I think.
Curves. Yeah. Whatever happened to them? I mean, that was a very specific niche.
Yeah. I actually don't know. I haven't done my research on curves, so I could tell you.
I think they grew so fast that it collapsed in on itself. I just remember reading something about that. It was just too much. Yeah. But yeah, I
think that's the issue with a lot of franchises because they're giving their control and their operate. Well, actually, I'm not 100% sure Curves was a franchise, but I think franchises at the very least they give a lot of control to the individual licensees of their franchise or franchisees. And then at the same time, it's difficult to maintain the right experience across all of these locations when you have different operators all over, despite like the best intentions of most people. It's very hard. It's like when you get to that stage and you're very big, it's very hard to maneuver and change around the industry as it also changes. So it might have just been, the industry shifted and something else took over.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably why, so many gyms just try to be everything to everyone. It's like, well, we can't limit ourselves kind of thing. But then you have, the big box gyms where you can't even get in. There's so many people trying to get in. And they have these special programs like, that are, you pay more per month and you have these amenities. But if you can't even get into the parking lot, it's like, it's just, all it is more frustrating, But, so I think you touched on this with a lot of things you just said, but so what makes you different than another marketing agency that specializes in helping gyms?
I would say I focused heavily in brand beyond, I would believe, what most marketing agencies would do, because it's not a really scalable thing. It requires a lot of one-on-one time with the founders and the owners of the gym in order to really understand their business, understand the direction they're trying to go, and then develop a strategy for them. Because if you really look at it, a lot of gyms or any business for that example, like strategy is actually super important, but strategy is also not enough. You need execution. And because of that, most businesses just tend to focus on the execution side. They don't really think as much about the strategy, or at least in the way that relates to brand. And so what I see in the fitness industry is that, for example, a gym owner saying, I don't get enough leads. Okay, let me find a marketing agency that focuses on Facebook ads. Or, my social media presence sucks. Let me hire some videographers and photographers and let me upgrade that social media presence. Or almost everything's broken. Let me hire like a gym specific company and use their cookie cutter package that, they market it as everything works, even though my neighbor down the street uses the same exact thing.
All right.
And it must work as they use it, right? So it's really looking at the problem and trying to solve it in isolation when the problem at a root cause is much deeper than that. Mm-hmm. So the way that I view it is, if you're a gym or any business for that matter, if you don't have a strategist, then you are the strategist. And if you are the strategist and you've tried everything and nothing has worked, then likely there's something that you're doing wrong there. So what I offer to gyms is the strategy to get the eyes in the right direction, and then a full service fulfillment in marketing and design with my team to execute that strategy across whatever touch points are required.
Okay. And it sounds like most gyms won't even know what it is they need. Is that an accurate statement?
They have a gist of what they need, but again, they're looking at it from like an individual touch point standpoint. Like, oh, my website's not getting enough traffic, let me redo the website. Or my social media ads are not performing, let me redo social media ads. Instead of looking at the root problem of like, hey, maybe you're not marketing, your marketing's not working getting leads because you're trying to appeal to a very general group of people and everyone else in your market is marketing the exact same way with the same offer, and that it just gets muddled and everyone's doing the same thing. So why would anyone care? And how would you show up as different if everyone else is doing the same thing? So
yeah,
a lot of it goes much deeper. And I think it's less of a, it can be a business breaking thing, but it's also sometimes it's a lack of like, is not seeing the opportunity that's available. Like if you are a certain type of business owner, let's say you're a ex Victoria's Secret model and you're opening a Pilates studio, and you have certain advantages in that field because of your credibility in your space and your background, your story that other people wouldn't have. So you have an inherent advantage there versus like another gym owner who's just opening up a gym, being very generic and specific, or very generic about what they're offering and who they are. They're not even showcasing their advantages and the way that they stand out differently. And I think that's where the opportunity lies, is understanding who you are as a business, your product or service and how it could differ, and then expressing that in as creative ways as you possibly can.
And just really kind of creating all of your copy and all of your messaging around that, right? Like that would be...
Yeah.
Because,
yeah, definitely.
Because I start...
the messaging... Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, when I start working with a new client, I always work first on their value proposition, which is exactly what you're talking about. And then everything that I write, I keep going back to whatever we have decided is the best one for them. And maybe you can explain too, what's the difference between branding and a value proposition?
Well, your value proposition is part of your branding. So I think the distinction needs to happen is like, to understand branding, you have to understand brand. And brand is the perception that people have of your business, its people, and your product or service. Branding is the art and science of influencing that perception. So your value proposition, by having it clearer and your messaging actually expressing your value proposition, goes into the influencing of your perception. So that would be, it's contained within branding.
That makes sense. Okay. What other mistakes you mentioned, that people, gyms they tend to try to be all things to all people. What else do they do that you commonly see that's a mistake?
I think focusing on the customer, but also in the way that you're delivering your service is super important. And I think that a lot of gyms, they focus on getting the leads, but they also, like when you really dig into the business, are like, oh, but your product and your service isn't really like on par with what you're selling. And if that's the case, it doesn't really matter how much you throw into that bucket. It's like you're leaking. So really focusing on your customer is also not just for getting leads, but also so that you can build a better experience so that they'll actually stay and they'll refer and they'll bring more people like them. And then you build a community of people that are like-minded because they're all, the type of people that you're trying to serve. And that's when you really start to compound those advantages.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is like not focusing on the delivery of the service, which is the product at the end of the day.
Do you think too that community is becoming more and more important? Like you see people, like I go to the gym the same time every day. So even though I don't talk to anybody because I just want to work out, I see the same people. Sometimes we nod to each other. Occasionally somebody will talk to me. But do you think that that's a really important part of kind of maintaining a good, I guess creating community? How important is it to a brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super important depending on your business. For those big box gyms, it kind of just happens naturally in more of like small little groups. Again, like you go at a certain time, 5 p.m., people will show up at that time. I don't think there's as much community building going on in those big box gyms unless you're looking bigger at like let's say an influencer who started their gym, but they already have a community of people, and those people show up and go there, and then the community's kind of built and led around this influencer. The biggest example is Alpha Land in Houston, where they basically have a massive amount of people always coming through. A lot of them influencers because they're kind of positioned as that in the market, especially being this like theme park for gyms. If you're in the Houston area, just go check it out. It's really cool. But it really depends on your business. If you're like a group class, then I think it's super important. Having community and outside events that are not just working out, that are maybe even different than what you typically do, has been proven to increase retention and reduce churn. So yeah, community building is definitely really important, but I do feel that in this industry is used as kind of a buzzword.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what makes your gym different? Oh, we have the best community. But what is that exactly?
Okay.
What are the community of people that is there a specific way that someone could just look at this community and know it's for them rather than, someone introducing them into the community, which I get it. It's difficult, it's easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, community is very important.
Because there was one gym that when we first moved here, I've been in Arizona for 2.5 years, and there was a gym I first joined, and it was very cliquey. Like it was a lot of people, but there were huddles of people that clearly knew each other and were all buds. And it was intimidating to me because I can see the side eye, like who's this person? She's probably from California, and they immediately hate you if you're from California here in Arizona. Go back to your state. So yeah, I ended up not staying there. And that was actually part of the reason is I was just, it was very cliquey. And it's like, okay.
Now, was that a group class experience?
No,
or
it was the
what
weight
type
room.
was that?
It was the weight.
It was just the weight.
Just people just standing around, and it was just it was a weird vibe, and I didn't like it because I don't like cliques. It reminds me of high school.
And that's, I think those situations are tougher. Big box gyms typically don't have coaches that are can somewhat curate and regulate the interactions going on. So in that sense, I can see why you being someone and any new environment is intimidating for people, right? But I think gyms especially, because you feel vulnerable. You're doing something that, you might feel stupid. You might feel like you're not doing it right. Other people are judging you. And big box gyms typically don't have a way to combat that unless they're with a trainer or someone else. So I think it's really up to the trainers to influence that experience.
Yeah, that was a tough gym because there was just too many people there to begin with. But just, we're talking about community and how maybe it's changing within gyms, but what do you foresee happening in the fitness industry over the next, say, decade? That seems like a long time, the way things are happening so fast now, but.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah.
No, I think it's good. I think one of the reasons I'm in this industry is also that I don't think this is an industry that will be replaced by tech. I think it will always be supplemented by tech. And the reason is we're humans. We're always going to need some level of health and fitness, and fitness being this ultimate preventative medicine that is being increasingly pushed by modern popular narratives as this healthy thing to do, which as it should be, will only continue to grow this industry. So I think that the industry itself, I believe, while it grows, it will also, small subsets will become more niche. I think there's going to be a large influx of private and semi-private gyms specifically focused on older 40 plus, 50 plus populations. I think that's a big opportunity that a lot of gyms are not focused on. I think group fitness is definitely trendier. We've seen them come and go through the years, but I think any new brands coming into the space has to really focus on investing in their brand and standing out and trying to get on top of that natural wave that comes through fitness. But overall, I'm pretty positive about the industry where it's headed. I think we're going to be a happier, healthier country as long as the fitness industry still exists and continues its growth. And yeah, I mean, if you really think about if in the future we're in this utopia where we don't have to work, everything's solved, we still have fitness. Right. We still have to take care of our bodies. So super positive about it.
Unless we're replaced by some bionic parts, and then we don't have to worry as much.
Yeah, maybe we just become androids. Then yeah, we don't. But then I guess we'll have a different type of fitness. It'll be like replacing parts.
I saw something. I was watching some show the other night about some sci-fi thing, and they were saying how, there's, it was some like there's robots that you live for like 1,000 years, and you just replace the parts that you need replaced. That would be great, because you get to a certain age where it's like, I just need some new joints.
I need a new heart.
Exactly.
It's like I don't know if you know the game Cyberpunk 2023.
No,
but that game is like all about this. Everyone just has bionic parts, and you could like upgrade your eyes so you see better. Stuff like that. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty interesting.
Sign me up. Well, and that's.
I mean, there's the.
I was going to say we
go ahead.
On quick results, and you can't change the human body. I mean, we are who we are.
Yeah, yeah. I was just going to say, Brian Johnson, the founder of what is it called? He's the guy that's trying to live forever, basically.
Oh, I get rid of him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing he basically spends like millions of dollars a year to measure his body, get data so that he can like optimize everything so that he doesn't age and is aging backwards. It's funny because he started this years ago. Nobody cared. Everyone made fun of him. And now he's actually seeing the results and everyone's like, oh, wow, like he actually looks younger and like he's actually doing some really good things. A blueprint. That's what it's, blueprint. I do think that he's somewhat, it's scary to think about, but I think he's right. He's saying that the first human that will live forever is already been born. So interesting.
I don't know. I mean, to me, it's like we're biological. We have, it's just our parts are not made to last forever. So he's not the one who injects himself with his son's like stem cells or something. Is he?
I don't know if it's stem cells exactly or something. I don't know where it is.
This is something weird. I don't know. We're laughing, right? But he could probably be living forever and we're long gone. And it's like, well, he did it. And, we're out here.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're out here not looking.
Can't get on the results.
Yeah. Well, so what's next for you? Do you have any exciting projects you're working on? Something you're looking forward to?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always continuing to build FitKit. It's been an interesting process so far. So I'm excited to continue doing that. The most exciting project I probably have coming up is there's a new cycling studio that's going to be opening up in downtown London that I'm working on right now.
Wow.
Probably won't be out for another 6 months or so. But that's super exciting. It's my first international project. So very cool. And then other than that, pretty much just same old. Just keeping going.
So cycling studios are still a thing, huh? I am surprised. It seems.
Yeah, I think the way that they're doing it, and I'm not going to say anything to spoil it. It is a very different concept of cycling studios, but the founder is she probably is one of the most like researched person that I know that like, a lot of people go into business are like, I'm just going to start this business and they do a little bit of research. She like did a whole bunch of research first and then started the business. Oh, and she started it she's taking like a brand first approach, which I love. I think it's going to be, for what she's doing is super, is going to be really good.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that to come out. And other than that, just continuing working with my clients, building FitKit, and then that's pretty much it.
Cool. Well, I know you're active on LinkedIn. Where else can people find you if they want to work with you or want to know more about you?
Most of if you want to work with me type of stuff it's on LinkedIn. I am doing some personal experiments in Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, mostly just for my own creative outlet, as well as just making some content. It's not really focused on gyms and fitness studios, but it is focused on self-improvement and health, and will become more related as time goes on. So who knows? Maybe you're watching this podcast months down the road, it might be different. It might be very specific to gyms and fitness studios. Who knows? But I'm on all of the platforms. You can find me at Kai the Designer, either with 1R or 2R, 1R on Instagram, or no, 1R on YouTube, 2Rs on everything else. And then my LinkedIn is just my name, Kai Huang.
All right, awesome. Well, I'll put all that in the show notes. And it was so great talking to you. This has been a fun conversation. I appreciate you taking the time today.
You too, Linda. Thank you so much for having me.